Hey, welcome, Chris. So nice to meet you. See you in person and live, living color.
It's so good to meet you as well. So good to be hanging out with you. We should have done this in person. We live so close to each other.
Well, we just figured that out. I did not know
Yeah.
that, right? I mean, yeah, you could have come down here because your girlfriend lives down here. And you know what? We could have done this right here. Overlook. I was just telling you that I overlook a nature preserve. I'm on the back bay. And yeah, this would have been really awesome. But maybe our next interview we'll do
All
it.
right. Round two will be in
Round two.
person.
Right. Exactly.
Done.
So listen, so just a little backstory on you. You've worked as a radio and TV host, living and working in Toronto, Vancouver, Cleveland, and Miami since 2005. You then have since then been in Los Angeles. You're a 4-time Emmy winner, TV host, entertainment reporter, podcaster, YouTuber. You've traveled the world reporting on events like the Oscars, the Grammys, the Cannes Film Festival. You've interviewed the likes of John Cena, Hulk Hogan, Hollywood A-listers, Oprah, Tom Cruise, Will Smith. Okay. A lot. You've done a lot. And I don't know what your age is, but you've done a lot. I mean, I can tell you
What
that.
an intro. Wow. Can you just follow me around everywhere? This is great.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at that, aren't I? Just like right off. Yeah.
I love it.
But seriously, I mean, you know what? Sometimes you have to have that read back to you. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I mean, I sit there and I go, yeah, I've done okay or whatever. And then sometimes I have to hear that back to me to go, wow, I've done more than I thought I did. And I think that was kind of your recognition right there, right?
Yeah, but it's also that and I'm sure it's the same thing for you. You're just hungry for more, right? Like, that's all great, but that's all stuff that happened in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm just like looking forward to like, all right, well, what's next?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? A lot of people look at that and go, that's enough for a lifetime, but you're exactly like me. So because we are like that, that's why we don't get too caught up in what we've done, because the hunger would dissipate, right?
Yeah.
And we would just, oh, I'm so fantastic. I've done all this. The hunger would dissipate. So just give us a backstory. I mean, you're Canadian. You started in Canada, correct?
Yeah. I grew up just outside of Toronto, a town called Pickering, Ontario.
Okay. And you got when did you get this idea that you wanted to be, a reporter, a broadcaster, a host? When did you get that idea?
I think it really started when I was 4 years old and I had a Fisher-Price tape recorder, like an actual cassette tape recorder.
Yeah.
And it had a microphone attached to it. And I would pretend that I was the radio host that I heard on the radio. And my mom still has these tapes and you can hear me pretending to be a radio DJ or like a play-by-play announcer. And that's really where it began. And I just loved performing. I was in plays growing up. I was the vice president of my student council in high school. So I did the morning announcements. I would host the talent show and the fashion show. And I loved being able to be in front of an audience and number one, tell a story. And number two, evoke an emotion out of people. And that's exactly what broadcasting is. You're just doing that on a bigger scale. So we had a communication studies class in my high school, and we got to do everything, every role in the newsroom. So you were writing the stories, you were reporting on the stories, you were the cameraman, VTR, audio, you did it all. And every time I got to be in front of that camera, I just felt so comfortable. So when it came time to pick a college major, I liked communication studies.
No
you're
brainer.
17 years old when you're picking your college majors. So
wow.
I said, I want to give that a try.
So okay, because a lot of people like to be in front of the camera. I mean, they would choose acting, but did you ever go down that path or modeling or anything else? Was it always wanting to interview people?
I was so inspired by the TV hosts that I watched growing up. So like, of course, like Alex Trebek, but like, I loved the show Blind Date. Remember that with Roger Lodge?
Of course I do. Yes.
And I remember I would watch that show and the dates were ridiculous. Like if you go back and watch this show, ridiculous. But Roger Lodge was just such a great host. And same with Fear Factor. I loved Joe Rogan before he was the Joe Rogan that we now know and love.
Joe Rogan was on Fear Factor?
He was the host of Fear Factor.
Oh my God. Okay.
And also there was a terrible show on Spike TV back in the days called The Ultimate Revenge. And the show was it was not a good show, but I taped it all the time because the host was so engaging and he had this charisma that just leapt through the screen. And I would tape the show and I'd watch it back because I was so inspired by him. And this host's name was Ryan Seacrest. And the next year he went on and started hosting American Idol, and the rest is history. But
Well, wait a minute. Before that, Ryan Seacrest was a radio host here in Orange County.
yeah,
It was two other. There was a woman, him, and somebody else. Do you remember this?
and I know he was also a radio host in Atlanta, in his hometown, and like he just kept getting these great opportunities. He was also the host of the revamped version of American Gladiators.
Yeah, but this was way before then. And I remember my girlfriend had a crush on him and actually wrote a letter into the radio station, basically asking him out. Because, at that point, she pretty much had a chance with him. I mean, not now, but that is
maybe.
Yeah, Jamie something. And okay, anyways, but that's interesting. And what's interesting? I've said this so many times before, because a lot of people, when I have them on my show, it looks like they were an overnight success. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because all of a sudden you're hearing about them now, it's like, I'm glad that you brought like Ryan up. I mean, how many years all of a sudden he exploded with American Idol and has gone on to do the Kardashians and all that. But it was like, how many years was that in the making? And then, like, he never gave up, because if he'd have given up, he wouldn't have ever saw the fruits of his labor.
Yeah.
Right.
And as you know, Tina, there's no such thing as an overnight success. Like, it's always the 10-year, 15-year, 20-year overnight success.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. And you know what? If you would have told me that 10 years ago, I probably would have been like, I'm out. But you know what? Some things are better, like, left unseen or unsaid. So for you, when did things start to click for you? I mean, you knew early on what your passion was. I mean, did you ever detour from this? Did you ever say, forget this, I'm going to try something else? Were you ever talked out of it, or?
I knew it was a long shot. Like, if I'm being completely honest with you, Tina, I knew, especially growing up in Canada, there's not a lot of TV hosts there. Like, there's news reporters, but there's not a lot of TV hosts there. So I went to college for communication studies, and I had this epiphany. In my senior year, I had the best time at college, lived with 4 of my best friends, drank copious amounts of beer, lived the college life. And it just hit me one day in my senior year. I woke up and I realized I was going to have to work for, the rest of my life after graduation of school. And I went, I got to do whatever I can in these next 7 months to stack my resume and stack the odds in my favor, so that when I do graduate, I'll be that much more ahead of everybody else who's just graduated. So the next day, I reached out to every radio station in my college town, every TV station in my college town, and just said, I'm passionate about broadcasting. I'm a senior communication studies student at Wilfrid Laurier University, where I was going, and didn't hear back from a lot of people. But I did hear back from a hip hop radio station that said, come be part of our street team. So I handed out like stickers at events. There was a radio or TV station there that was run by volunteers, like a community run television station. They said, come on in, we'll take all the help we can get. I ran cameras there. I was a floor director. I was an audio operator, and I was seeing how it was done in the real world. And then this news talk radio station said, well, we don't take on volunteers, but how would you like a job? And I went, I'll take it. I don't care what it pays. I'll take it. And I was a board operator there. So I was running the soundboard. And then when my shift was done, I would go into the recording studio and I would record demo reels, so I had something to show for it. So I was doing everything I could so that when I graduated, I could actually hopefully have a resume with a few things on it that maybe I could get a job from there. So that was kind of when I realized it.
Well, not only that, but you did something for you learned how all the operations worked.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I've been doing this for a while. Down in the desert, I had 3 different local talk shows. Okay. And I didn't know anything about production and I lost.
My friend Sandy Newton.
Why does she sound familiar?
She's in the desert as well.
Sounds very familiar.
Well, look her up after and you'll probably go, oh yeah, Sandy.
Yeah. But by not knowing what I was doing and just hiring people, and not knowing what the cost should be. I mean, I lost my ass financially, and I had to start all over again 4 years ago. I mean, like, lost everything. And you know what? I think it's just so important for people, thank God that you learned how to do the soundboard and you learned how to do all the different aspects. So when it comes your turn, what people should charge and you're not taken advantage of and everything else. So that was radio the first, or was it TV the first?
The first paid job was radio. And it also gave me a great appreciation for what everybody does in every single role, because I think that as viewers, we just see the person who's on TV and we don't realize everything else that goes into making that.
Oh yeah, it's the team behind you. I mean,
Yes.
you don't have the team behind you. I mean, you can't do it by yourself.
No,
Absolutely.
not at
Yeah.
all.
So tell us about four Emmy award winnings. What did you win the Emmys for?
So if we fast forward a bunch of years, I was in Cleveland. I was working as an entertainment reporter for the CBS affiliate there. And coming from Canada, I was obviously aware of what an Emmy was, but I didn't even know it was possible to enter them at any level. And I won for hosting 3 times, and I won once for best sports story. And I'm a big wrestling fan, as you can tell by this custom wrestling belt behind me here. I'm a big wrestling fan, and I was so fortunate to tell the story of this wrestler in Cleveland who his name's Gregory Iron. He's the only wrestler in the world that wrestles despite being born with cerebral palsy. So,
Wow.
and I became great friends with Greg, and his story is so incredibly inspiring, but was able to tell his story through the lens of a wrestling fan, but also through the lens of someone who's being insanely inspired by seeing what he does. So, yeah, it's kind of the pinnacle in our industry to win an Emmy. So to even be nominated was, oh my gosh, a huge, huge honor.
Hang on one second. Okay, so let's that's an amazing story. Why? Because I noticed that because I went to your YouTube channel and you're all about the wrestling. Like, I'm like, 1, 2, 3. Like, when did you get interested in wrestling? Did you do that yourself? Or what got you?
I mean, I've been a wrestling fan most of my life, really got into it in like 1998, 99 during what they called the Attitude Era. So this was Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H,
Well, they just did a
Mankind, The
commercial.
Undertaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And I wanted to be a pro wrestler, you know. I
Oh,
actually went
did
to
you?
wrestling school for a few months and was training to be a pro wrestler, but decided, you know what, I'll get my communication studies degree, and, you know, wrestling will always be there if I wanted to. And now I'm really fortunate to be able to work in broadcasting and dip my toe into wrestling, you know, whenever I want. But in terms of the YouTube channel, I've been so fortunate to interview all kinds of different people, like actors and directors and comedians, all kinds of different celebrities. But early on in my career, being a huge wrestling fan, you're interviewing all these other celebrities. Wrestling would come to town, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, here's my chance to interview a wrestler and get paid for it. So I would do 1 or 2 wrestling interviews when WWE would come to town. And I would just take that raw interview because I was asking questions that I legitimately wanted to know the answer to as a fan, like
Right.
asking like in-depth fan questions that we weren't airing on TV. So I would take those raw interviews, put them on my YouTube channel, and the numbers just started going up. Like,
Yeah, you have almost 300,000 followers or
yeah,
subscribers to your YouTube
yeah. I
channel.
mean, I've been so fortunate to gain some
So,
traction on there.
so there's so many people like myself that are looking to do what you're doing. Okay. And when you say, the wrestlers would come into town and got to interview them and I got paid for it. Who was paying you? Were
This is
they
when I was
paying
working
you?
for the TV station.
That's
So
when you were still working for the TV
yeah,
station.
and I mean, I've been interviewing wrestlers since 2007 when I was working for MTV2 Canada in Vancouver. And
Wasn't that called Much Music or My
it
Music?
was, yeah, you're aware of Much Music.
I
Wow.
I
Yeah.
lived in Vancouver for a
Oh,
little
isn't
while.
it a
Yeah,
great city?
it is a great city. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
So I was interviewing them just as part of my day job. And I
Oh,
was taking
right.
the long version of those interviews, throwing them on my YouTube channel simply as like a digital library. Like, because the way that television works, or at least worked, was unless you were watching TV on that Tuesday, channel 19 at 4:17 p.m., you'd never see it.
Right.
So, and I was kind of thinking bigger than that, like someone outside of this city might really like this interview. So I'm going to take this, put it on my YouTube channel. And if you feel like watching it, great. If not, that's also great, but it's going to be there for you.
Wait, so how long ago did you create your YouTube channel?
10 years ago.
So you were way ahead of the game.
And again, I was not thinking as a YouTuber. I don't even really think that existed at the time.
No, it didn't.
I was just
I'm
thinking
sure it
like,
didn't.
here's a place I'll share some videos.
Wow. Yeah. And that was very insightful of you too. So like now, are you contracted with a TV station now or are you just independent?
I'm independent now, freelancing. I'm shooting a TV show that's going to be on AWE, which is the Wealth Channel, coming up soon. But I'm doing my own thing in between the YouTube channel, the podcast, this other show I'm doing, and freelance hosting. I'm busier than ever. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. The world's your oyster. So can you share with us what this new show is before we start talking about your podcast?
Yeah, sure. It's called My Dream Purchase. And the idea is you finally come into the money that you can buy the thing you've always wanted to buy. So maybe it's a sailboat, maybe it's a classic Porsche, maybe it's a private plane. We did an episode with like super expensive wedding dresses. So we walk you through 3 options, 1, 2, 3, and we talk about the pros and cons of each one. And then you decide which one's going to be your dream purchase.
And so you're the host of that.
I'm the host of it. Yeah.
Fantastic. When does that air?
This is a great question. And maybe I'm talking about it prematurely because we're still in the middle of shooting season 1. Okay. But I would imagine in the new year on AWE, which is a wealth of entertainment, the Wealth Channel.
Okay, perfect. That's fantastic. Now I noticed that your podcast is different. So tell us what your podcast is all about, because I was kind of scrolling through there, and you've got a lot of different subjects, a lot of different personalities on there. So tell us more about your podcast.
Yeah, it's called Insight with Chris Van Vliet. Wherever you're listening to this, you can find it. And my whole idea is people who are the best of the best got that way for a reason. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. It's not an overnight success. You don't just wake up one day and you're the best. So I want to go through their journey. I want to reverse engineer how someone like, a top athlete, or could be a top entrepreneur. I want to figure out, how did they get to where they're at? Maybe they're at step 23. You're at step 1. But if we can figure out what step 22, 21, 20, all the way back to where you are, it makes the journey seem that much more achievable.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a lot of what my show is about too. That's why I talk about the backstory. And my next question to you would be, like, I'm sure along your journey, okay, you had setbacks, you were defeated. I mean, I'm sure everything didn't run smoothly. I mean, you did right out of, college, you got your radio job, but I'm sure there was a lot in between before you achieved success. Can you share maybe a story where you felt like, this is never going to work out? I'm never going to get to where I want to go, and what you did to get yourself back up and back in the game?
Sure. So after getting that radio job as a board operator, I'm still in school at the time. And I know that when I'm about to graduate, that job's going to come to an end because I'm not going to live in my college town anymore. And I knew I needed an internship to hopefully kind of bridge the gap between graduated student and hopefully gainfully employed, now person entering the workforce. So I was applying for all these internships in broadcasting and nobody was even writing me back. So we had spring break coming up and I thought, I'm going to do whatever I can to try to lock down an internship during this time. And I scoured the internet and found the email for the general manager for a small TV station that was 60 miles from my hometown. I emailed him and I said, I'm going to be in town next week for spring break. It'd be great if I could come into you and talk about a possible internship. This was a total lie. I had no plan on being there. I hadn't been to that.
We've all done that. I'm going to be right around the corner from you.
He wrote me back and said,
an automobile to get there, but
right. He wrote me back and said, well, if you're going to be in town, come on by. So I went by and he looked at my resume, which now had the experience that I told you about. And he said, we don't usually do this, but looks like you've, really been working hard here. So what the hell? We'll give you a shot. And that was the fact that I made myself available, because if I just sat back and waited for it to happen, it was not going to happen at all. That internship had me driving an hour each way, living in my parents' house, driving an hour each way, 5 days a week, working my part-time job from high school in the fish department of a pet store so I could pay for the gas to drive to my internship. And after 2 months of doing it, well, first of all, after 2 weeks of doing it, I was following around reporters. And when you're at a small station, they're doing it all: shooting, writing, editing, and being on camera.
Right.
So I was following them around, watching them do it. And 2 weeks in, the assignment planner goes, here's your story for the day. And I said, yeah, great. Like, who am I going out with? He goes, no. This is your story. You're going to be on the 6 o'clock news tonight. 2 weeks into my internship. And then my internship very quickly shifted from me following people around to me actually being a reporter every single shift. And that ended up turning into a job. That internship turned into a job. And I think it was just the fact that if I didn't make this situation happen for myself, if I didn't go out of my way to create that, it never would have happened.
Well, not only that, I mean, you were hit like everything that you wanted was right in front of you. But we always think we want something, and all of a sudden, here it's in front of you. It's your time. You're going on camera like whenever, and then all of a sudden we freeze up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you know what? My motto has been this last year is just say yes and figure it out later.
I love it.
For so much of my life, I'd be like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I need another certificate. I need another this. I need more time. And you know what? I really believe that the God in the universe is always working for you. And if it presents itself, I don't care if you're prepared or not, it believes that you are. So figure it out. Just figure it out. And so you did. You grabbed it. I mean, while we're talking about that, what kind of belief system do you have? Do you believe in God, the universe? I mean, what kind of belief system do you have that you follow?
Yeah, I'll say it starts with gratitude. I'm a huge believer in gratitude. I have it right behind me here. Be great, be grateful. And I think that if you can be grateful, you'll live a great life. But I so want to echo what you're saying. I don't think that the universe puts you in a situation that you're not prepared for. And the reality is you're never going to be 100% perfectly ready for a situation. You're just going to have to figure it out as you go. So while you say yes and figure it out later, recently I've been saying what the F are you waiting for? Like, if there's something that you want to do, if you want to do it and you're not doing it, the only thing standing between you and doing it is the excuses that you're telling yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this gets in the way, right? I mean, it's funny because I recently started taking up tennis. I was born with a tennis racket in my hand. I mean, my listeners that listen religiously have heard this story so many times. My father just pressed me so much to be a number one player because I had two coaches. One of them was Chrissy Everett's coach, and he's like, she could be a number one player,
Wow.
right? It ruined my taste for tennis, to say the least, because there was so much pressure on me and everything else. And what's interesting, so I'm getting out there. My brother and I live in the same community, so we have tennis courts here. And he's like, just have fun. And he says, Tina, stop thinking so much. Your body knows what to do. It's kind of the same concept. You see what I'm saying? You have within you, if you have this burning desire to do something, and you've been doing the planning and you've been doing the action and the footwork, when it comes to showtime, you do know what to do. You just break out of that and kind of just allow yourself to be and take advantage of the situation. And I think that's where most of us freeze up. I mean, even like people, I remember when I got pregnant, when I found out I got pregnant, I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't think this was going to happen for like 9 months. I'm not ready yet, but I think that's just so important for people just to step into the fear and go, you know what, it wouldn't present itself to me if I wasn't ready. So.
Yeah. And a lot of people look at the accomplishments of other people and go, yeah, but they're special, or they can do that, but I can't. And I'd like to say, well, if somebody else is doing the thing that you want to do, that just means that you can too. Now there's a path to get there.
Exactly. And, a lot of people think there's not enough room at the top. And that comparison game, whether you're on, especially on social media. So many people, and I've gone there too. So many people are trying to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Why me? Why? You know what? Because I'm me. That's why. Because there's no other Tina Marx out there. There's nobody that interviews like me. There's nobody that has my humor, my personality, whatever it is, my animation. And so you got to keep going. So anybody that's comparing themselves to other people too, please remember, you are unique. There's out of 7 billion people in the world, there's only one like you.
Yeah.
Unless you have a twin. Okay.
Then they just kind of look like you, but they're not like you.
They kind of look, and they're complete. They could be completely opposites, right? They just look like each other. Right. Exactly. So do you have any kind of morning routine, Chris, that if, let's say, those days that you wake up and you're not feeling so inspired, or you're not feeling so motivated, I mean, do you have something that you do religiously, consistently, to make sure that you stay in motion and you're pushing yourself forward all the time and stay inspired?
For me, it's just a lot of little things. So my morning routine begins the night before. I have a get-to-do list. These aren't the things I have to do. These are the things I get to do the next day.
I'd love that. Yes. Makes all the difference.
And I write them out as small and as insignificant as they may seem. It could be something as simple as I got to empty the dishes tomorrow or whatever, but there's a real sense of accomplishment at the end of the day when you've crossed off 19 things on your list and you're about to go to bed and you go, my God, what a day. Look at
That's exactly it. Because you know what? if you don't do that, because most people are like, they feel like they're always behind the eight ball. Like, I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough. But when you start, when I have my clients start time blocking, I said, you're going to realize one of two things. You're either going to go, heck, I did a lot more than I thought, or I'm not doing that much. I better get on it. Right. It's
Yeah.
one
And,
of the two
and
things.
they also realize, I'm sure, how much time they waste every day.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
like you're not, if it's either one or the other, you're either like,
Yeah.
man, I'm a badass and I'm doing more than I thought, or wow, I'm scrolling too much on Instagram and I'm talking on the phone or I'm complaining or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
it's really, really important. And I have them do it the night before too, because not only you go to bed, you probably have a great night's sleep, and then also to the get to list. And if whoever's listening, what that means is every time we say, I have to do this today. What is that? I mean, if you just say that, the energy that goes through your body, it's like, ugh.
Yeah. Language is so important.
It is the shift in perspective when you say, I get to, like, I actually get to do this stuff. I mean, your energy lightens. So, doing it the night before is so important, especially, Chris, the next morning. Let's say you have that kind of morning, you're like, I really don't want to do anything today, but you've got that list it's already in front of you. So you don't have to create it, right? It's already there calling at you. So it makes it a lot easier. So I love that. I love
Yeah,
it.
I'll say my day does not start with hitting the snooze. That's a really big thing that I've taught myself, where it's like, if I'm waking up at 6:30, I'm waking up at 6:30.
So do you like tell me why you don't do the snooze? Because I do it sometimes.
What are 9 extra minutes like gonna help? Like, no, the 9 extra minutes of sleep are not gonna help. And now if I did snooze, or if it didn't snooze, now I'm 9 minutes ahead of where I could have been.
Right. Okay. But for me, you know what? I'm very anxious. I mean, I've got, so far, I know I have 3 types of ADD, and I'm trying to get to Dr. Amen's. There's 7 different types. And what's really been eye-opening for me this week is I keep taking the tests. There's 70 questions. I take it. I'm not getting, it keeps going processing. So I take it again. But it's interesting. Like, I believe everything happens for a reason. There's a reason I had to take it twice. You know what I'm saying? And I'm very anxious because of it. Like, and especially if you've been through a lot of trauma, and I moved out of my house. So there was a lot of trauma there in the last couple of weeks. So like, I wake up and I'm kind of like fight or flight, you know what I mean? So for me, especially in a time like this, it kind of relaxes me going, you've got 9 minutes. I know I'm getting up, but it's not like, because, that's one of the things, one of the questions is, do you feel like you're on like a motor all the time? And it's, if you have it, it's not fun. So I'm looking for alternative methods to do that. But anyway.
I do whatever I can to wait as long as I can before looking at my phone. So.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I do.
And then it's like right off to the gym. Usually that's I'm not a coffee drinker, but the gym is my energy. Like, the gym like juices me up.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's one of my, I do journaling, I do affirmations, I do gratitude.
Yeah.
I do meditation, I do visualization.
Yes.
And so you never drank coffee, or did you just?
I don't know. I just didn't love the flavor, and I don't feel like I'm that sensitive to caffeine. So I'm just like, and it's also, my mom is like addicted to coffee, and I love my mom, but she drinks like 4 cups a day. And I never wanted to be one of those people who had to rely on a chemical to feel a certain way.
I agree. And I, stopped drinking coffee a couple months ago, and I've started drinking Cacao Bliss. You should Google it. It's amazing. It's a superfood. Tastes like hot chocolate. You should get your mom on it. And it does have natural caffeine because, raw cacao is not only an antioxidant, but it also is a little bit of caffeine, but it's good caffeine. So I'll give you that information.
Please. Okay. I love it.
On that. Okay. So listen, is there anything that I have not, we've talked about your podcast. What's next for you?
I think that for me, it's about like looking at what's next tomorrow. Like, that's every single day for me.
It's love
being
that.
able to, and I've been trying to be conscious of this, especially, during the pandemic. I heard someone refer to it recently as the great pause, because before the pandemic, we were all go, 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 go all the time. And it forced all of us to stop in our tracks and kind of look around at like, who's important and what's important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of carried that through to now of like, yeah, sure, I have things to do next week and next month and next year, but what do I have tomorrow? Like, what do I have tomorrow? What's right in front of me? And how can I focus on that and make the best of that situation?
Right in the present, and not even tomorrow, just like right now. That is probably One of my biggest struggles, and I'm now attributing that to ADD. Because that's not my fault, but seriously, because I can be in the next week already, not even in tomorrow. I can, I've got to stop what you said is so true. And I really took the time during this pandemic was to analyze. I did make changes with friends and moving and all. I did take advantage because there's no time like the present,
Yeah.
especially what's going on in this world right now. So, I mean, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I think that's phenomenal. So 3 takeaways for our guests. I mean, anybody that wants to do what you want to do, anybody that, any takeaways that you want to leave with our guests.
I will say gratitude is so important. And I think it's so important to focus on what you have rather than focusing on what you don't have. And I think that so many people do the reverse. I think they're always like, I want this, I want this. Focus on what you have. And if you focus on what you have, you'll get more of what you have.
Absolutely. Law of attraction.
And I think for my story, it's put yourself in the room, make yourself available. Like in the broadcasting world, those jobs weren't waiting for me. I had to go out of my way to create those positions, put myself in the room. So whatever industry that you're in, make yourself available. And I think that that's such an important thing to do.
Chris, what would you say to somebody if they said, I want it so bad, Chris, but it's in front of me and I have the opportunity, but I'm so scared. I'm scared I'm going to fail. I'm scared I'm going to look like an idiot, because that happens all the time. The opportunities like we were talking about presents itself. Is there some kind of tool? Is there some kind of mind hack or whatever that you maybe used when you were faced with something like that?
I've often tried to find someone who's doing that thing already, and maybe I can pick their brain. Maybe I could send them a message or an email, or maybe have a quick phone call with them and have them hopefully like walk me through like, what's the first step here? But then the most important thing is you have to start, because if you don't start today and you don't start tomorrow, you don't start next week, when are you
going to start? Yeah, exactly. Like it'd be a year, another year. So that's great. I love that. I think everybody should have a mentor. And you know what? Don't be afraid to reach out to people. I mean, Instagram is a great way to do that. Just DM somebody. You know what? If they don't answer, DM somebody again. But you know what? I think you're going to be very surprised how many people are willing to help.
And I will say with that, make sure to lead with value, because it's so easy to reach out to somebody and say, here's what I need.
I want.
Yes.
Exactly. I say that. Be the pitcher. Don't be the catcher. Always bring something first before you ask for something, right? Bring something of that. You're right. Because nobody likes to feel used. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that would lead into the third takeaway, is just bring value in everything that you do, in every relationship that you have, whether that's a personal relationship or it's a professional relationship. Bring value to the situation. So give instead of focusing on taking all the time.
Absolutely. And we think we have it backwards. I need to get first before I give. I need to see it first before I have faith. And we've been conditioned exactly the opposite. I'm so glad that you brought that up. So tell us where we can find your podcast. Tell us the name again, which platforms we can find it on, and also the name of your YouTube channel and where we can find that. Well,
so you can find my podcast wherever you're listening to this, on any platform for podcasting, Insight with Chris Van Vliet. And then on social media and on YouTube, it's just my name, Chris Van Vliet, VanVliet.
Vliet, you guys. Yeah, because I was wondering how you pronounce it. Well,
I know it looks like it should be pronounced differently.
It's a really cool name. I really like it. I
just wished it was, easier to pronounce, like yours, Marx. So easy.
Yeah, it's easy. Tina Marx, 4 letters each. But such a pleasure having you on. Really, Chris.
Oh, I'm so glad we were able to connect.
Me too. So everybody, you have Chris's information. I highly suggest you listen to his podcast and watch his YouTube. He's fantastic. And the news show. And when you get that information of when it's going to air, let me know, and I'll let all my audience know when that's going to air.
That'd be amazing. Tina, you are a rock star. Thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate you having me on.
And I appreciate you. So everybody, thank you for joining us again this week. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's Tina Marx TV. And of course, if you have not downloaded my podcast, please do so. And if you feel inclined, please leave a review. And we will see you all next week. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much, Tina.